None other than CNN jumps on the bandwagon, showing Eric and Dylan after the shooting at Columbine, and then they say, hey, we need to get rid of the guns. Now, let me ask you a question, America. When a crime is committed, does the gun go to jail, or does the person committing the crime go to jail? Thank you.
The gun lobby is strong, they are organized, and they are scary. Enough of their tactics. They are buying votes with blood money.
Rosie O'Donnell had the audacity to jump on the bandwagon and said that if you own a gun in this country, then you belong in jail. Interesting. One guy saw right through her hypocrisy and put blaming guns for Columbine is like blaming spoons for Rosie O'Donnell being fat on the back of his van. Well, Rosie, maybe we should have a spoon ban. Blaming guns for Columbine is like blaming spoons for Rosie O'Donnell being fat. Don't ever forget that. Just to be fair to Rosie, she did admit and correct her wrong.
Some of my comments, in retrospect, seem a little outlandish, like the day after Columbine when I said, anyone who has a gun should go to jail. I was afraid that children were being killed every day.
So you would take that back?
Yes.
Good for you, Rosie. Look who else is on the bandwagon. The United Nations. Look what they're trying to do. They're trying to indoctrinate the American people by saying, hey, we need to get rid of the guns to have the peace. So I did my homework. I noticed on the outside of the UN in New York, they have a gun with the nozzle tied in a knot at the end. Then I said to myself, whoa, why do they have security guards with guns? And then I noticed they keep national peace and world peace with tanks, mortars, missiles, bombs, and armies with machine guns. And they want us to pull down our means of defense? I think not. How about the United Nations drops theirs first? Thomas Jefferson was right when he said, no free man shall ever be debarred the use of arms. In the 1700s, George Mason rightly said, to disarm the people is the best and most effectual way to enslave them. Did you know that where guns are made mandatory, crime plummets? That means where communities own guns or a means to defend themselves, crime goes away. In 1982, the town of Kennesaw, Georgia, passed a law requiring all able adults, except convicts that is, to have a gun. They have had only one murder from an outstate criminal with a gun and have had no increase in crime or violence in 12 years. They also interviewed some of the prisoners in a jail a few miles away from Kennesaw. Guess what the prisoners said? Stay away from Kennesaw. They are an armed people. Common sense. Now, for those who are for disarming the American people, I would say this. You need to wake up and smell the coffee. Criminals never apply for permits. They're not asking anybody for permission.
I'm not worried about the government saying that I can't carry a gun. I'm gonna carry a gun anyway.
Here's some food for thought. Why is your government, while in a state of terror, asking you to give up your arms and your means to defend yourselves? Never trust a government that doesn't trust its own people with firearms. Now, I want you to hear it straight from former U.S. Attorney General Janet Reno. Listen to what she had to say. Waiting periods are only a step. Registration is only a step. Prohibition of firearms is the goal. Folks, there's definitely an agenda to try and disarm the American people. For over 200 years, we have been an armed nation, and now all of a sudden it's wrong and unconstitutional. To ensure security for the people is to make sure that they are secure by defending themselves. You empower them, not disarm them. And that's how it's always been in this country. Nothing has changed. The only thing that has changed is what they are trying to indoctrinate the American people with. Annie Hendrick and Sally Skidmore are two women in their 80s who were beaten in their homes, and this is two more reasons, if needed, as to why vulnerable householders might have a right to defend themselves against violent intruders. Again, keep in mind that criminals do not apply for gun permits. And of course, we all know this is not about crime. They recently disarmed the people of England, and with that, the elderly are becoming the target of criminals. Crime is also skyrocketing. Why? Because disarmed citizens are an open prey. In Britain, it got so bad that at one point, one lady was robbed so many times that she took chicken wire and put it around her house. She was taken to court by the government, and the judge told her, "You need to remove the chicken wire lest you hurt one of the intruders." That's the kind of mentality the American press is trying to put on the American people. Gun control is not about guns, it's about control. If you don't know your history, you might want to go back and learn what history has to teach you. Every time a nation is disarmed, there is massive genocide. Just ask Adolf Hitler, Joseph Stalin. Then you will know why a government wants to disarm its own people. One time, a lady was walking down the street and she had a button on her shirt that said, "Proudly disarmed." Lady, what are you telling a criminal? I walked into Shoney's in Missouri a few years ago and there was a sign stating, "No guns allowed." I walked inside and asked the lady working there, "Do you have any idea what you're telling criminals?" She said, "Yes." "Rob me." I said, "That's exactly what you're telling a criminal." You see, your Second Amendment declares a well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state. The right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. And again, that is your Second Amendment, and forget it not. According to the federal statute, Title 10, Chapter 13, Section 311A, all males between the ages of 17 and 45 who are citizens of the United States or have declared their intent to become citizens are members of the unorganized or reserve militia. In 1996, the Australian government forced the country's gun owners to surrender 640,381 personal firearms, which were subsequently destroyed, costing the government more than $500 million. In the first 12 months, homicides increased 3.2%. Assaults increased 8.6%. Armed robberies increased 44%. In the state of Victoria, homicides with firearms increased 300%. In 1911, Turkey established gun control. From 1915 to 1917, 1.5 million Armenians, unable to defend themselves, were rounded up and exterminated. In 1929, the Soviet Union established gun control. From 1929 to 1953, about 20 million dissidents, unable to defend themselves, were rounded up and exterminated. Germany established gun control in 1928, and from 1939 to 1945, 13 million Jews and others who were unable to defend themselves were rounded up and exterminated. Guatemala established gun control in 1964. From 1964 to 1981, 100,000 Mayan Indians unable to defend themselves were rounded up and exterminated. Uganda established gun control in 1970. From 1971 to 1979, 300,000 Christians unable to defend themselves were rounded up and exterminated. Cambodia established gun control in 1956. From 1975 to 1977, 1 million educated people unable to defend themselves were rounded up and, you got it, exterminated. Defenseless people rounded up and exterminated in the 20th century because of gun control, 56 million people. The next time someone talks in favor of gun control, ask them, who do you want to round up and exterminate? With guns, we are citizens. Without them, we are subjects.